Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Trying a different type of video today. We've done one similar to this on the channel before, where we discussed Echo. And this time around, I want to discuss Thatcher. Because I can't get my head around it. And I want to get some feedback from you guys as well and see what your opinions are and what your ideas are regarding it as well. But I've just been looking over the balancing matrix that most recently got released. And as we can see, Thatcher's presence is, what, 43-ish%? Still got a negative wind delta, though. However, down here on the ban rate is at a 86% ban rate, which is crazy because Thatcher has always been so fundamental to Siege, and I'm curious as to why he's banned so much. And yet he's not drastically performing when he is picked, or when he's available, I should say. I mean, he's overpicked, but he's not necessarily winning rounds. So my first thought is, what is the problem surrounding Thatcher? Is it Thatcher or is it something else? And after thinking about it, the only thing I can think of about Thatcher is that he's too simple, too easy, and people seem to have got this mindset of play Thatcher to get the wall, and if Thatcher's available, you're going to get the wall regardless, and you win the round. But that doesn't seem to be the case. And there is arguments that Thatcher does have more utility, and I completely agree. I think people underestimate what Thatcher is used for, or how he should be played. But I just wanted to have a think and discuss the topic and see what you guys think, because let's break it down. So the problem, at least from what I can see so far, I might be wrong, and by all means, let me know in the comments, is that he's too easy. You know, you approach the reinforced wall that you have to open to get the plant down. You throw your EMP at the wall. EMP goes off. Hard bridge against the wall. You're in. But he's banned all the time. So what does that leave you in terms of alternatives? You've got Maverick, who isn't actually overpicked. I feel like I see Maverick more than what is represented in this graph, but that's just my experience. And then obviously you have Twitch. But let's be honest, I have a sneaking suspicion Twitch isn't overpicked or hasn't got that high of a presence because of her utility to get rid of stuff. And it seems to be more around the fact that she's got the F2. Which, by the way, if you play Twitch and you haven't tried the DMR, the 417, do it. It's amazing. And then you've got Flores, who I rarely see, but I really enjoy Flores, and I think that's a sleeper op. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. But he seems to be in a reasonable area. He's in the, you know, underpicked, but a reasonable win delta. And then you've got Carly all the way down here. Not really doing a fat lot. Let me zoom in so you can see this a bit better. Do this, shall we? There we go. We'll do this. The Carly being all the way here. Twitch actually has a higher presence than Thatcher. Again, probably because of the F2. Maverick, reasonably picked, but doesn't seem to be doing that much. And Flores, similar kind of win delta, but not picked as often. And again, there are other things that Flores can be used for. Carly, obviously, even being advertised on release as the Thatcher alternative. I'm going to go more into Carly in a separate video, I think, because I think there's a lot more to discuss there. But she is meant to be the Thatcher alternative, or the Thatcher alternative. And just isn't performing anywhere near close enough. So, going back to the original problem with Thatcher, or at least the problem that I have come to the conclusion of, that he's too simple, too easy. And another thing that confuses me is the fact that he's got this 86% ban rate. Yet last time I checked, I'm fairly certain the majority of players were more comfortable on defense anyway. So I'm curious as to why Thatcher is banned that much. Maybe that doesn't have much to do with it. Maybe I'm drawing at straws there, or linking the wrong things. But I feel like, based on Thatcher's performance, that having a Thatcher available on the enemy team, I feel like shouldn't concern you too much either way. If you're putting the correct amount of utility into holding whatever wall you think is needed, then it shouldn't really be a problem. In fact, at least in my personal experience, me and my friends have recently been banning Maverick more because we feel like people depend on Maverick a lot more recently. And especially when Thatcher's already gone, like banned by the other team, and then we ban Maverick, people seem to be at a loss as to how to open certain walls. And it's insane. So this is the other, like, so if he's overpowered in the idea that he's simple and doesn't take a lot of effort, is the problem with Thatcher, or is the problem with dealing with Thatcher? Because in my head, those are two different things. Like, Thatcher, I don't feel like he's oppressive. At least based on these graphs, he's not tremendously winning things, or, you know, he's not carrying his team whenever he's available. Granted, there's some more stats you could look at, which hopefully we'll have access to in the future, that might give a clearer indication as to how certain characters are maybe being used. But this doesn't make any sense to me. Based on his performance and his ban rate, this doesn't add up. And don't get me wrong, when the ban section, what is it called? Ban. My brain has died. Whenever operator banning, I'll say, was first introduced, I was in the group that was like, yeah, we ban Thatcher because people depend on Thatcher too much. But since that was a long time ago. Since then, people have learned how to hold walls differently. People have learned how to use different characters like Maverick, like Twitch, in other ways. You could even argue that Yana, Finker, and Sledge here, all having nades, can be used as a Thatcher alternative to destroy stuff. And the fact that either destroys things and possibly kills the person trying to hold the wall is much more oppressive than Thatcher disabling a few things. So part of me wonders, because I was also looking at Kaid. Kaid is the third most banned defender. And part of me is wondering, obviously Kaid's not the problem. Kaid's very strong. I don't think Kaid's a problem by any means. Mute got nerfed a few patches ago so that he wasn't as good at holding walls. I still see a lot of people trying to hold walls with Mute though. But is Bandit a problem? Like, Bandit... The thing to me is, like, Bandit has an easier time of Bandit tricking, in my experience, because of how long it takes to deploy his batteries. Which is why, if Thatcher's on the board, I'm more comfortable playing Bandit and trying to Bandit trick, because I feel like people are so lazy with Thatcher, they just sling the EMP and assume that it works. So if you think ahead, you can out-time that and big brain him and keep the wall closed. However, other than that, Bandit being available makes him very predictable. Obviously, he's only got set places he can put his denial, and it's fairly simple to get rid of without stacking a bunch of utility like Jaegers, Wamires, Mute Jammers, God knows what else. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't necessarily think there is anything wrong with Bandit. I just feel like Bandit might need a slight update. We have recently got this change where he can now apply 2 batteries to the same wall, specifically so that if one gets hit with an EMP, you don't have to pick it up to reset it and have to go through that whole transition of animations, which I think is a good change. And I'm going to give it a bit more time before I make a complete judgment call on it. But I was thinking, what happens if Bandit can maybe apply his gadget in different ways? So, similar to Kaid, where Kaid can sling it on ceilings or on walls and stuff. But what if the main difference being that Bandit still has to have connection to the wall? So, put it on the floor, maybe put it on the wall next to the reinforcement, or put it on the reinforced wall, just so that it's not always at the bottom. I wonder if that makes a change to Bandit that makes him better at dealing with Thatchers or any wall denial scenarios. It's just an idea. I want to hear back from you guys. Do you think that's crazy? Do you think that's too strong? What are your thoughts on this, like applying 2 Bandit batteries to one wall? I personally think this is quite an interesting tweak, and it might help. But I don't know if it's going to change the general mentality around Thatcher. So, that's my idea for Bandit. Maybe tweak Bandit so he's a little bit better, so he's on par with Kaid. Can keep doing his job, but allow for a bit more creativity and maybe some different suitability to certain situations. So let's go back to Thatcher. Thatcher's here. We have a Flores and Maverick ban. Granted, it's only at 2%, so it's easily disregarded. It's interesting that Flores gets banned, who's here, but Twitch doesn't. Maverick is on par with Flores, but Maverick is still more present than Flores. I'm interested to see who and or why Flores is being banned. But in addition to Thatcher and how he's utilized, when he is banned, do we need a better alternative? So again, I feel like Twitch is mostly picked because of her loadout. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I just think that's the way that is. Maverick's an interesting one because of how he just completely negates the wall denial. But he's very vulnerable at what he does. Which I don't have a problem with Maverick. I'm not very good with Maverick. I will happily admit that. But you know, I feel like he's quite well balanced for where he is. Flores, I don't think there's really anything wrong with Flores. I just think people are sleeping on him a little bit, and maybe what's Mute's present? I mean, yes, and Mute's still got quite a high presence, so the fact that Mute's always out and about kind of affects both Flores and Twitch. But the Carly, man, I think either a tweak needs to be done to Carly, or I personally would like to see a tweak to IQ. I guess we also do have Zero. I've not been accommodating Zero into that way. He does have that utility. I have one bugbear with Zero, and that's I feel like his cameras being deployed is far too loud. Unless you're actively synergizing with your team, like telling your team to make noise or waiting for your team to make noise before you deploy your Zero cams, man, they're loud. And I feel like they do not get enough utility. At least, I don't think they get enough utility from the laser. I think if you're using them as like attacker Valk cams, like just setting them up and holding flanks, or you know, just giving you kind of map knowledge, fine. I think that's absolutely fine and works wonderful. The laser, I feel like, is an underutilized bit of utility just because it's so hard to get those cams into sight or near sight so they can actually use that impact. And I'm going to reiterate a couple of ideas. They're by no means mine. I heard them from other sources. One of which I'm going to mention I'm sure multiple people have mentioned it, but the person I heard it from, I believe, was Get Flanked, another Siege content creator. And there's an IQ idea that I really like the idea of, which I believe Bikini Bodhi mentioned at some point. It was a good while ago. I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, but I'm fairly certain those are the sources that at least I heard it from. They could also be heard from somewhere else. However, the Kali change, or the idea behind Kali, is just a different primary. Let's be honest, the reason Kali doesn't perform well is because she has a long-range bolt-action sniper that just doesn't... It's cool. It's a fun little thing. I don't think she needs to lose it. But she needs an alternative that people can use, because it just... being locked into that weapon sucks, especially on smaller maps, or maps where sight lines are really awkward. So that's... I believe that's what Get Flanked mentioned in one of his videos. The IQ change that I believe I heard from Bikini Bodhi was a really interesting one, which I'm going to go over IQ in a separate video as well, I think, because IQ... I like the fact that I like what she does. I just don't think it's enough. Obviously, I think a lot of people play IQ because of her guns. I don't think that's an issue, really. And I like her gadget, being able to find, gadgets around the map easily, and especially with the smart ping buff. I think that was a very interesting buff. But especially in ranked, I find it's really hard to warrant bringing her unless Valk's available or Echo's available, and they're maybe causing a problem for the team. Because typically a lot of utility is in very similar spots because of how people just put it where they think is the easiest, and is quite often the first place you'd think to put a gadget, whether it's a Jaeger ADS or bandit batteries or mute jammers, stuff like that. But what if IQ could disable a gadget? Through her scanner, she can find it, and maybe she can lock onto it and disable it for a certain amount of time. Whether it's something that she times, like she activates the gadget, she disables it, like one piece of utility, like disabling one mute jammer or one camera. And then for a certain amount of time it's disabled, and she can't use that gadget, that ability again until that disable effect is worn off. I think that's an interesting one. Or there's the idea that she can keep something disabled, be it one or a couple of gadgets, as long as it's within her visor's target area, I guess. But she has to manually maintain a disable. Like, she has to sit there and disable something while her team acts upon that situation. I think that would be an interesting way to go. The only thing I don't like about that is that in a 1v1 or 1vx situation, that disable again is kind of pointless because you can't disable and do something. So, but that would also be a trade-off, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I like the idea of her being able to disable one thing for, say, I don't know, 7 seconds. And then until that 7 seconds is up, maybe even make the recharge 10 seconds. Then she can disable something else. But making IQ more viable, at least in terms of utility, and just giving an alternative to Thatcher, like maybe not as good. Like, I think Thatcher should be king at AoE disturbance for gadgets. I think that's his shtick, and I like that. Which brings me to the next point of Ubisoft have mentioned they are reworking Thatcher. Don't entirely remember what it is, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to it until I see it in a functioning manner. But they've also talked about getting secondary EMPs to attackers, which I don't know if it helps, personally. I think the problem with that is there's already a lot of secondary gadgets that you want to bring. Granted, it applies more value to certain things, but it also makes some things more less likely to occur. Like, frag grenades are running rampage at the minute because of how good they are. However, they are, in abundance at the minute. So maybe making it so that people bring EMPs reduces their impact, makes people think a bit more. But then again, why would you bring that, which a grenade can be used to destroy, not just disable, but destroy gadgets, as well as potentially kill someone. So I still, if I've got an attacker that's got nades or an EMP, I know which one I'm taking. But my main issue with it is that I think it does remove some of the identity from Thatcher. And I don't like that, personally. I think that Thatcher, for the most part, is in a good spot. People just don't like dealing with him, whether it's they don't know how to deal with him when he's available, or they would rather just not have him there and try and use the other utility. Excuse me, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Like, people don't seem to want to find, other than Maverick and maybe nades. I feel like most people, if Thatcher's not available, they're not as worried about getting the wall, which is very strange to me. But personally, I don't like the idea of the secondary EMPs. The secondary hard breach I liked because of how there was already different types of hard breaches, and they do a good enough job at being better at the secondary hard breach. But the EMPs, I feel like there's enough different things that people can use that makes Thatcher not lose his identity, as well as allows for more creativity. So I find it hard to want to use secondary EMPs or even have them. But yeah, it's just me kind of spurting thoughts at this point. So let me know what you guys think. What would you like to see change? What do you have a problem with Thatcher? Do you think we need better alternatives? Do we need better ways of dealing with him? I'm really struggling to find what the problem with Thatcher is, because I don't really think there is one, other than people not wanting to deal with him. Then they have to deal with other stuff, and it hurts my brain. So let me know down in the comments, guys. Let's have a discussion. And I hope you like this type of video. It's very different. It's going to be, for the most part, probably unedited. So apologies, unless you want edited content. Yeah, just let me know what you think. We will cover different operators. I have a few ideas I'd like to talk about. I've already mentioned a few, like Carly and IQ. Probably a few others in the future as well. Let me know what you think, both in the comments, and I stream on YouTube fairly regularly. Not always Siege. That's usually weekend stuff. But if at any point you wish to have a conversation about it, hop in the stream and let me know. And we'll discuss it and see what other people like. Doesn't matter what rank you are. I don't care necessarily about rank. There is a certain point that it needs to be considered, but just in general, like what's your problem with it, and what would you do about it? So thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, like it, comment it, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.